The cavernous training chamber aboard the Galaxis Prime hummed with the rhythmic clang of steel and the dull thud of bodies hitting the mat. Around its perimeter, alien soldiers of every imaginable shape and size leaned against the walls, their vibrant uniforms a kaleidoscope of coalition pride. Their laughter echoed across the room, thick with mockery. At the center of the commotion, Lieutenant Commander Jason Ramirez squared off against an 8-foot-tall reptilian soldier, its scaled muscles rippling under the harsh lights. The Sorhan warrior bared its fangs, saliva dripping as it hissed. "You'll last less than a minute, human." Jace wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. "We'll see about that." The whistle blew. The Sorhan lunged with shocking speed, claws extended to rake across Jace's chest. But Jace sidestepped with fluid precision, his movements calculated, his gaze cold and steady. He ducked under the creature's swipe and delivered a low, sweeping kick to its knee. The Sorhan stumbled but quickly recovered, twisting to counter. Around them, the jeers of the alien soldiers grew louder. "Look at him dance!" one called out in a guttural tongue. "Is that all humans can do?" Another sneered, mandibles clicking in amusement. Jace tuned them out. His focus sharpened as he feinted left, drawing the Sorhan into overextending its strike. With a swift pivot, he drove his knee into its midsection. The alien soldier doubled over, and Jace seized the opening, flipping the towering reptilian onto the mat with a deafening crash. Silence fell over the chamber. "Next," Jace said, brushing dust from his uniform. His voice carried a quiet confidence that sent a ripple through the crowd. No one stepped forward. Commander Tarek, the coalition officer overseeing the training session, strode into the ring. His gleaming exoskeleton reflected the overhead lights, and his multifaceted eyes narrowed in disdain. "A cheap trick," he spat. "Strength, not agility, wins wars. Strength without strategy loses them," Jace replied evenly. Tarek's mandibles twitched in irritation, but before he could retort, the chamber's alert system blared to life. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through the ship. "Emergency protocol initiated. All personnel to briefing stations." Jace shot a glance at his team, 5 fellow SEALs standing at attention near the far wall. They moved as one, following him out of the chamber and into the brightly lit corridors of the Galaxis Prime. The ship's layout was a maze of twisting passageways and holographic panels displaying vital data streams. As they jogged to the command center, Jace's mind raced. Emergency drills were common, but the tone of the announcement hinted at something far more serious. The command center was a hive of activity. Alien officers barked orders in their native languages, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony. At the center of it all stood Admiral Vren, a hulking insectoid with a chitinous frame and a voice that resonated like thunder. "Status report," the Admiral barked. A technician swiveled in her chair, her green-scaled fingers dancing across a console. "The defensive grid around Arcturus Moon Base has been compromised. Unknown entities have sabotaged 3 key nodes. Enemy ships are massing in the outer sector." Admiral Vren's mandibles clicked in alarm. "We cannot hold them off without that grid. Deploy repair crews immediately." "They won't make it in time," Jace interjected. All eyes turned to him. "You need a tactical strike team. We'll infiltrate the moon, secure the nodes, and neutralize the threat." Tarek stepped forward, his imposing frame casting a shadow over Jace. "And you think your primitive team can accomplish what our best couldn't?" Jace met his gaze without flinching. "You've seen what we can do. Give us the chance, or sit back and watch the enemy take this sector." The room fell silent, tension crackling like static. Finally, Admiral Vren raised a clawed hand. "Lieutenant Commander Ramirez, you have my authorization. But know this, failure is not an option." Jace nodded sharply. "We won't fail." Back in the SEAL's quarters, Jace gathered his team around the holographic table. The room was a stark contrast to the opulence of the alien officers' quarters: bare walls, steel furniture, and a faint hum of recycled air. "All right, listen up," Jace began, projecting a 3D map of the moon's surface. "Sabotage points are here, here, and here." He tapped the locations, each lighting up in red. We'll deploy via drop pods, split into 3 teams, and secure the nodes. Expect heavy resistance, these aren't amateurs. Petty Officer Carla Mendez, the team's tech specialist, leaned in, her brow furrowed. Do we have intel on the saboteurs? Not much, Jace admitted. But they knew how to disable coalition tech, which means they've got inside knowledge. Stay sharp. Chief Petty Officer Daniel, Doc Everett, the team medic, chuckled dryly. So, just another Tuesday, huh? Something like that, Jace replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Gear up. We deploy in 10 minutes later. The SEALs stood in the deployment bay, clad in sleek black combat suits reinforced with alien alloys. Each carried a hybrid weapon, a fusion of Earth's ballistic tech and coalition plasma systems. The drop pods loomed before them, cylindrical capsules that would hurl them through the void and onto the moon's surface. Jace's calm crackled to life. Lieutenant Commander, this is Admiral Vren. Remember, if you fail, the Coalition's trust in humanity will be irreparably damaged. No pressure, Jace muttered under his breath. As the pod doors sealed shut around him, Jace felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. The countdown began, each second stretching into eternity. Let's show them what humans can do, Jace said into the calm. The pods launched, streaking through the darkness like meteors. The laughter aboard the Galaxis Prime was long forgotten. The drop pod shook violently as it entered the moon's thin atmosphere, its reinforced hull straining against the turbulence. Inside, Jace gripped the handles, steadying himself as the rattling intensified. The sound of his own heartbeat thudded in his ears, but his voice remained calm as he addressed his team over the comm. Focus up. Stick to the plan, and we'll be back on the Galaxis Prime before they know what hit them. Assuming this tin can doesn't shake us apart first, Doc muttered. Positive vibes only, Doc, Mendez replied, her tone dry but steady. The pod's descent slowed abruptly as the thrusters kicked in, and a sharp hiss signaled their final approach. The moment the hatch blew open, Jace was on his feet, rifle raised, scanning the barren terrain beyond. Dust storms swirled under a pale, sickly green sky, obscuring the jagged craters and ridges stretching across the horizon. Clear, Jace called. The team spilled out behind him, moving with practiced precision to secure the landing zone. Node Alpha is 2 clicks northwest, Mendez said, checking her handheld scanner. I'm picking up intermittent heat signatures, probably patrols, but nothing close. Stay tight, Jace ordered. Eyes open. We move now. The SEALs advanced in a staggered formation, their boots crunching against the moon's rocky surface. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional gust of wind and the hum of their gear. As they neared a jagged ridge, Jace held up a fist, signaling a halt. He crouched low, using the ridge for cover, and motioned for Mendez to join him. She passed him the scanner, and he studied the readings. 3 targets stationary, he said quietly. Guard post. Mendez, you're with me. Doc, cover the rear. Jace and Mendez crept forward, their movements fluid and silent. As they reached the edge of the ridge, they peered down to find 3 alien soldiers, their massive frames silhouetted against a faint glow emanating from a nearby control panel. The guards were speaking in guttural tones, their weapons slung casually over their shoulders. Take the 2 on the left, Jace whispered. I've got the big one. Mendez nodded, her hands steady as she aimed her rifle. The 2 fired in unison, their weapons emitting muffled pulses. The guards crumpled before they could react, their bodies hitting the ground with muted thuds. Area secure, Mendez said. Jace moved swiftly to the control panel, examining its layout. Alien script glowed faintly on the screen, incomprehensible to human eyes. Mendez, see if you can get this thing talking, Jace said. She knelt beside him, pulling out a compact device and attaching it to the panel. The screen flickered, translating the text into Coalition Standard. It's a bypass console, Mendez said. Looks like they've rerouted power from this node to some kind of relay station. If we don't cut it, the entire grid stays down. Can you disable it? she grinned. Please! This is child's play. As Mendez worked, Jay scanned the area, his instincts prickling. Something felt off. Movement, southeast. Doc's voice crackled over the comm. Looks like reinforcements. How many? Jace asked. Too many. Jace cursed under his breath. Mendez, how much longer? 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes, he said, eyes narrowing as he spotted figures emerging through the swirling dust. Doc, suppressive fire. Mendez, finish up and fall back to cover. Jace barked, switching to his rifle. The first shots lit up the ridge as the enemy opened fire, their plasma rounds sizzling through the air. Jace ducked behind a boulder, returning fire in controlled bursts. Beside him, Mendez cursed as her device beeped. Got it, she said, yanking the device free. Node Alpha is offline. Fall back, Jace shouted. The team retreated, moving from cover to cover as the enemy advanced. Plasma bolts streaked past, some exploding against the rocks, showering them with debris. Jace laid down covering fire, his rifle kicking against his shoulder. Doc, status? Still breathing, Doc replied. Barely. Jace smirked despite himself. Good. Keep it that way. They regrouped at a narrow canyon, the high walls providing temporary shelter. Mendez checked her scanner, her expression grim. They're not letting up. And there's more on the way. Jace's mind raced. The terrain was working against them, funneling them into a choke point. They needed an edge. Options? Doc asked. Jace looked around, his eyes falling on a series of jagged outcroppings above the canyon. An idea formed. Mendez, you've got charges, right? She nodded. Always. Good. We're going to give them a warm welcome. As the enemy soldiers entered the canyon, they found it eerily quiet. The SEALs were nowhere in sight, their tracks disappearing into the dust. The leader of the alien squad signaled for caution, his sharp eyes scanning the rocks above. Too late. The charges detonated, sending a cascade of boulders crashing down, trapping the aliens in a maelstrom of dust and debris. From their hidden vantage point, the SEALs opened fire, picking off the survivors with ruthless efficiency. Within minutes, the canyon fell silent once more. Jace exhaled, his shoulders relaxing slightly. Nice work, Mendez. Don't mention it, she said, though her grin betrayed her pride. We're not out of this yet, Jace said, pulling up the map. Node Beta is half a click east. Let's move. The team pressed on, their pace quick but cautious. As they neared the second node, Jace's comm buzzed with an encrypted message. He frowned, tapping his earpiece. This is Ramirez. Who's sending? A distorted voice replied. Not all allies can be trusted. Be wary of shadows within your ranks. The line went dead. Jace froze, his mind racing. The voice was unfamiliar, but the warning was clear. Someone in the coalition had orchestrated this. And if they were right, the SEALs were walking into more than just enemy territory. They were walking into a trap. Commander? Mendez asked, noticing his hesitation. Jace tightened his grip on his rifle. We've got a traitor. Stay sharp. And trust no one. The approach to Node Beta was eerily quiet, too quiet for Jace's liking. The winds that had carried swirling dust storms earlier had died down, leaving an oppressive stillness in their wake. Every step felt heavier, every shadow more sinister. Something's wrong, Jace muttered into the calm. No patrols, no guards, Mendez agreed, her rifle sweeping the area. They should have reinforced this place after Alpha. They're not dumb, Doc added. If they pulled back, it's for a reason. Jace's gut churned. The warning from the mysterious voice echoed in his mind, be wary of shadows within your ranks. He pushed the thought aside for now. They had a mission to finish. The team reached a ridge overlooking Node Beta, nestled in a shallow valley surrounded by jagged cliffs. The facility was larger than the first, with more consoles and a central generator humming faintly. But it was devoid of life. Clear, Mendez whispered. Too clear, Jace replied. He studied the facility through his scope, searching for any sign of movement. "We go in, do the job fast, and get out," he finally said. "Doc, stay here and keep watch. Mendez with me." The two descended cautiously, their steps muffled by the thin layer of dust coating the ground. The facility's eerie quiet only deepened the tension. Mendez worked quickly, attaching her device to the central console. "Same setup as Alpha," she said, her fingers flying across the interface. "Rerouted power. Shouldn't take long." Jace scanned the area, his nerves on edge. Every instinct screamed that they were being watched. "Mendez, how's it looking?" he asked. "Almost there," she replied. "Another minute." A deafening explosion cut her off, the ground shaking violently. Jace was thrown backward, slamming into a metal column. His ears rang as he struggled to his feet, smoke and debris filling the air. "Mendez!" he shouted. "I'm okay," she coughed, crawling out from behind a console. "The generator! Someone rigged it!" A chorus of guttural roars echoed from the cliffs, followed by a rain of plasma fire. Jace grabbed Mendez, dragging her behind cover as bolts of energy scorched the ground around them. "Doc, we're under fire!" Jace barked into the calm. "Tell me something I don't know," Doc replied, his voice strained. "They're all over the ridge." Jace peeked out, his heart sinking. Alien soldiers were swarming the cliffs, their weapons trained on the facility. It was an ambush, carefully laid and expertly executed. "We need a way out," Mendez said, her voice tight with urgency. Jace's mind raced. Their position was untenable, but retreating would leave them exposed. He glanced at the remains of the generator, an idea forming. "Mendez, can you overload what's left of that thing?" Her eyes widened. "You want to blow the whole place?" "We don't have a choice. It's the only way to take them out and cover our escape." She nodded, her hands already moving. "Give me 30 seconds. Jace raised his rifle, firing bursts to keep the enemy at bay. He could hear Doc's sniper rifle cracking in the distance, each shot punctuating the chaos. "Doc, we're blowing the node. Fall back to extraction," Jace said. "Roger that. I'll clear a path," Doc replied. The air was thick with plasma bolts, and the acrid scent of burning metal. Jace could feel the heat from the incoming fire, the sting of debris against his skin. "Done!" Mendez shouted. "We've got 30 seconds to clear out." Jace grabbed her arm, hauling her toward the exit. They sprinted across the open ground, plasma bolts streaking past them. The moment they reached the ridge, the facility erupted in a massive fireball, the shockwave knocking them off their feet. Jace scrambled up, pulling Mendez to her feet. "Move!" They raced toward the extraction point, the cliffside path treacherous underfoot. Doc was already there, his rifle slung over his shoulder as he waved them on. "Extraction inbound," he said. "ETA 2 minutes." Jace nodded, turning to cover their retreat. The surviving aliens were regrouping, their rage evident as they charged through the smoke. "Hold them off until the bird gets here," Jace ordered. The SEALs formed a defensive line, their rifles spitting fire as the enemy closed in. Jace's muscles burned, his breaths coming in short gasps, but he didn't let up. He couldn't. The roar of engines filled the air, and a sleek dropship appeared over the ridge. Its side doors slid open, revealing gunners who unleashed a barrage of suppressive fire. "Go, go, go!" Jace shouted, pushing Mendez toward the ship. They clambered aboard, Doc covering the rear. The moment they were inside, the ship lifted off, the ground dropping away beneath them. Jace slumped against the wall, his rifle slipping from his hands. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath. Across from him, Mendez leaned back, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. "That was too close," she said. "Yeah," Jace replied, his voice grim. As the ship climbed higher, a new voice crackled over the calm. "Well done, Commander Ramirez," it said, smooth and cold. "You've proven your worth yet again." Jace stiffened. The voice was familiar, but not from his team. "Who is this?" he demanded. A low chuckle echoed. A friend. Or perhaps an adversary. That depends on your next move. The line went dead, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Jace clenched his fists, his mind racing. The mission was over, but the game had just begun.